One and a two and a Humbug Funk. Humbug Funk. Humbug Funk. Humbug Funk.
Well, happy Sunday to you. We are here on Longbox Punk with a brand new live stream. That's me. I'm Chris. I'm the punk, and I am joined by Humberto Avila. Dude, thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Sunday. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we get to talk comics and punk.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. I am super stoked and excited to hang out and talk about comics, punk rock, and the indie scene. And just, I love talking about comics. So, I'm ready to get into this.
Awesome. Well, before we dive deep on your super sick comic, The Reckoning, I would love to start with, being a comics based podcast. Like, what's your origin story? How did you get into comics? How did you start creating? Like, where did all of this come from for you?
I got into comics when I was about 8 years old. I used to go with my dad. He owned a coming co- a plumbing company, and he worked for himself. And he would go around job sites, and every weekend or the summer breaks or winter breaks, I would go with him, and he would buy me lunch and like sodas, to keep me. I was a little kid, and eventually, as I got older, around 8 years old, he would say, "Well, I'm going to start paying you. You can either get candy, soda, chips, or a comic book." And I immediately was drawn to the comics. And he said, you can just choose one. And I ended up picking up a Superman comic one day at a bodega. And then that was it. I was just hooked ever since then. I
That's
chose that over candies and sugars. And it just stuck with me. And I just made a point to just get comics every chance I got. Um, Going out with my dad to go when he would go out to jobs. And we were really poor. And I was a latchkey kid. So what I did for money was I would look for change on the floor, and seriously, I would just nickel and dime. Every nickel, dime, quarter, penny I found, I kept, saved up, and in the weekends, walked to the corner store, went to the rack, and I picked out whatever comics that I could afford um, that were there. And eventually, when nobody was buying comics in the 90s bust, the store owners were going to say, "Well, we're going to throw these away, but since you're here every other week, yeah, here you go. Here's the large stacks and boxes of books that we're just going to send back. So if you got $5, we'll take that. And here's your box of comics." And I've never looked back ever since. I've just been a collector since I was 8.
That's awesome. I like the loose change that people drop is so uh underappreciated. Like when I was in high school, we've got like a water park with a giant pool that's now closed, but I used to like clean the trash cans there during the summer. And we were going on like a senior trip. We were going over to Austria and Germany with my choir. We're going to be singing like these really old like hymnals and stuff in the churches and in the buildings where they were written like 400 years ago. It was a crazy, like just wild trip. But I was like, I don't have any money. I'm not going to be able to buy food while we're over there. So working at Coney Island, like I would pick up every single quarter, dime, nickel, penny all summer, every shift I had. And by the end of it, I had collected like $250, and that was my spending money on our trip. And it was just from picking up change and rolling it and taking it to the bank. So I love that you did that to get comics, because like what better way to spend pocket change than buying comic books?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, it was like, be, I didn't know I was poor or anything like that, but one of the cool things that I picked up, or when I look back on things, is that like when I remember the '90s, right around when the comics had the bubble bust,
Yeah.
and but the comics were like $1, and finding a quarter here, a couple of dimes there, it added up, and so like on the weekends, I would just have a blast because I'd have collected like maybe $3 or $4 a week in loose change and selling crushed cans at the aluminum recyclers, and then going into the corner store, picking up books, going home, and then again when the buzz came out and some stores were like, "Well, we're not going to carry anymore," them just give me the boxes. That was awesome. Another thing I did and was that I would ask neighbors like, "Hey, do you have like things going to be done, like clean up your dog after your dog or whatever?" And either give them money, or they would say, "Hey, you're the guy that I hear you like comics," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Here's some books that I had when I was a kid. I was gonna throw them out here. You want that?" And next thing you know, as now when I got older, they're like timely Captain Americas, or I was just finding old keys that when I was a kid I didn't know that's what they were.
Yeah.
But after I got into, to flash forward a little bit, when I got after my accident and I had to move back home, which I'll address in a minute, I was going through my comics, and then I was like, oh snap, I have, you know, timely Captain America, Submariners, and I'm like, oh wow, right now in 2012, this is big to have these books. And
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't the best condition, but to just have them in the first place is an achievement
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
rare find. And they were just giving them away because I was just, the people were just like, this isn't worth money and whatever.
Yeah. Oh, it's a comic book, like, yeah, this thing's for kids, right? Man,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my time to like come across a yard sale or something. And I'm part of like uh different communities on Facebook or whatever, and I never get on there anyway. Until recently, but like I will see posts come up in notifications of like people that were out and they're posting, the original miniseries that Wolverine was in. And the one guy was like, yeah, some lady had, duplicates of several of these comics and she just wanted to get rid of them. And she was going to give them to me, all of them, for like $5. And I still gave her $50, knowing that, it's still, these books are still worth way more than that. But I felt bad taking for $5. And I was like, shoot, man, you're better than me. I would have been like, $5. Yeah, here you go. I got $5. Sure. Like super downplay. But it was like like 2 number ones. I think he had 3 number twos, 2 number threes, and 2 number fours. And I was like, gee, like, why do you need duplicates of all those? But they were in really good conditions. I'm sure he sold half of them, but I'm waiting for that. Every time I drive by a yard sale, I always look for the comic box or any sort of like box that a comic would fit in, of just hoping that I can be like, hey, I'll buy all of these books for $20 and hope that I find some gold in there.
Yeah. I mean, I love going treasure hunting. And, but like I said, when I was a kid, going into my being a teenager and then going into my early 20s, I had odd jobs and I worked here and there as I was going, growing up. And again, I would just tell people, yeah, I like comics, I like music. And I was just like the poor punk kid in my area that they were just like, yeah, well, hey, I know a guy, or at a job I was working, wherever I was working, they'd be like, oh, my grandmother has my old books. Yeah, we're gonna throw them away. If you want them, I'll just, do you want them? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take them. And again, it never occurred to me to like look through them too closely to sell them, because for me, the comics, I loved them because of the stories and the art. And the fact that I could sell them never really occurred to me until really after my accident in the like maybe mid 2012s, the 2010s, when the Avengers movie first came out and then everything started exploding in
Mm.
popularity, and comics had that big boom where everything was super expensive, and I was just sitting on like long boxes and closets that after I moved back, I had two closets and a spare bedroom filled with long boxes of Golden Age and Silver Age, Bronze Age runs of well, with keys and everything just sitting there. And I was like, oh wow, I can. I went through them and I started like keeping the best copies, got into
Mhm.
grading and even selling some stuff and trying to raise money for certain things that I needed and whatnot. But oh man, like I said, it's just a happy thing where I'm like just the love of the comics, and I just had so many that I really didn't want to part with even the extras, but
Yeah.
because I just loved they were always like a source of comfort for me as a kid. So I never really grown out of it, even at the tender age at 42 years old. I'm quite the old man here, but I love it. Like I'm like a little kid. I love comics. I keep saying that. And I know I'm repeating myself. It's my
Yeah.
special place.
Yeah. Yeah, I have taken like mental health days off from work, and I literally use them to like just pull out all my long boxes and reorganize some, or I always have a stack of comics that I've read that I haven't bagged and boarded yet. And so I've taken several days where I bag and board comics, and then I got to rearrange my boxes to get them to fit in because I'm running out of space. And it's I get it, like just being surrounded by comics. And I don't even have to pull them out and read them again. Like I can just pull them and look at the cover, and it like the joy that spawns from just looking at covers. And some are remembering where I was when I got them, some are remembering finding that diamond in the rough, and it might not even be a key issue, it's just an issue that meant something to me, that like suddenly I'm brought back to that moment in time where I'm like, I found the book. And it's magic, man. It's hard to encapsulate to people that don't get it. um but you're in a safe space because like we get it. And as Chris says, like they're providing worlds that we get to leave the nonsense that we might be surrounded by in the real life and just escape and have real heroes, and read of the bad guys losing because they should. And in certain instances, of course, whatever, take all of the modern comics and bad guys winning and everything tongue in cheek, but you know what I mean. Like there's a magic that if you grew up with it, and if comics mean that to you, that you can't describe to anybody else. Like my wife doesn't get it, and we've got she has a plethora of comics in her house that she could be reading at any time, and she doesn't get the same level of like just mystical awe that I get when I think about, talk about, read, look at, reorganize, bag and board, like all of those things. She just doesn't get that same excitement that I do. And that's totally fine. Everybody has their thing, and comics aren't hers.
Oh yeah, totally. And, well, the other thing is that I love the history of it. Like my
Mm,
favorite artist is Alex Schomburg. He's one of my favorite artists and creators. I mean, Bill Everett with creating not just Daredevil as he's super popular right now, but also Submariner, Namor. Then you've
yep.
got the John Hammond Human Torch when he was an android. You got of course Joe Simon and Jack Kirby with their old Golden Age Captain America. But it's just I love Schomburg's art. I like Harvey Kurtzman who did the Two Fisted Tales for EC Comics.
Yeah.
Jack Davis, who was the other artist on those titles, and he created Mad Magazine. And then I love the old Golden Age creators, and that's also like one of my favorite thing is just looking at that history, and also knowing that like I still have like maybe about 20 pieces of Golden Age books that I refuse to sell, and they're special to me because I love having them because I know that there was some kid or adult that bought that with 10 cents, read it, loved it, played with it, did whatever. and it survived the trek of time
Yeah.
to get down to me. And there's just a long history of hands that it's passed through, and I just that connects me to a past that I'll never know, but I feel connected to.
Yeah.
And it's just I just that's just what I love about it. And to get like where the reckoning and all that came from was in 2012 I got into a car accident on Christmas Eve, and I had broken my neck. And when I woke up Christmas Day, I got the prognosis, and then 6 months later, uh, I was released. I had to move back home. I had previously been living in Arizona, doing work at a recording studio, and as a live sound engineer for um, uh, uh, corporate meetings, doing stuff like that. And when I came back, I had to find out a way to pass the time. So I got back into comics, and I even opened up a comic book store for a little while, like an actual brick and mortar. But I couldn't maintain it because of my disability.
Mm.
I couldn't afford to keep a staff and pay the rents and pay all that on as a new business. The costs are really high to get started, and so I had to close that down. And I still couldn't like let go of comics, and I couldn't get a job anywhere else I was trying to apply. And so then I said, you know what? I have extra book. I still have tons of golden age books, doubles and triples. Some graded, lots of raw. You know what? I'm gonna sell some of these, and I'm gonna help finance my book
Mm.
to get me going. And that's what I did. And The Reckoning is the first story I wrote, and it was about maybe a 3 year development process. Just because it took me a while to move the books that I needed to move to raise the money for the artwork from Nate Walkington, who's a great guy up in Florida, and to hire Ray Dillon as another cover artist, Francesca Fentini, and to get the cosplay artist Zyla Vale to do all the work and all that, and the lettering and whatnot.
Mhm.
And so it took a little while of development, but me selling my comics helped me make my comic become a reality, and it all just ties all into each other.
That's awesome. I love the circle of life of that, where the funds came from comics that came before, that then you were able to turn into a brand new comic. I love that that's how the funding came together. And like, you just ran a successful Kickstarter too. Like, it just funded. Time is nothing to me at this point. It was recently though, right? Like, within the last month or
Yeah,
so.
it ended in May. Yeah, time for me is very nebulous for me. I lose track of time very easily.
Yeah.
That's one of my I'm very on time with things, but the concept of like me keeping my own personal time is empty. Like it's nothing but like scheduling for anybody that says, "Hey, I need you to be here on this day." I'm on point. But when
Mhm.
it comes to my own personal stuff, yeah, I'm like, I don't know, man. Yesterday, they're like, no, yesterday's a little too soon. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was about May when it finished.
Okay. Yeah,
And
and like, what was that process? What was that process like for you? Like, doing the campaign, having people come in and fund it and back it, and then being able to send it out and like get it in people's hands.
well, right now it's still in the fulfillment stage. I
Okay.
had to hire a an outside company to help me do that,
Mm.
simply because of my paralysis, which I know I had said I was in a car accident, and that's what spurred me getting into writing my own comic. But just to give some context, I do have a severe physical disability. It's quadriplegia. Um, most recognizable would be Christopher Reeve Superman, who played Superman. I have the same disability. I'm paralyzed from the neck down. I can breathe on my own, so I don't need a machine, but I can't use my arms. I can't walk anymore, and a whole host of other problems. So I did have to hire outside someone to handle the work that I couldn't do and to make sure that the quality of the packing and the shipping meets my standards, because my mom and my brother were going to volunteer to do it,
Yeah.
but when they were handling my own personal comics, they don't really see the big deal of like, oh well, we can just fold these in half, right? Like actually fold them in half and not like, why are you putting them in these plastic bags and boards? Just put them in like a mailbox, like in a regular mail. And I'm like, no, you need a bag and board. Why? I'm like, because condition matters. You gotta make it nice. And
Yeah.
so I to really make sure that everybody got like a really clean copy and that it was handled with love and care. I made sure that I hired, dependable people that will do that. And so right now they are I got notice that they are bagging and boarding everything.
Hmm.
And hopefully by the end of the week, around like in a week and a half, it should be sent out and everybody should have their physical copies
Nice.
in hand.
That's
But
awesome. Go ahead.
it went. Oh no, I was saying it's such an honor to have as many people have bought into the book as they did, because it just means a lot to me. Like I love comics, and I really just wanted to share the story that I had to write and just to share with everybody, because I mean, to make a comment on like how comics are written today and the state of where everything's are, it's hard to write in a really original story, given that like well, I mean, with everybody telling their story, there's going to be overlap. I mean, horror story, when you look at the book, it's like in general you're thinking it's a horror story, detective, it's been done, like okay, you have Sam and Twitch in the Spawn universe, you have Doctor Strange, you have Constantine, Satana, and you have all those other popular IP, characters. How are you going to make any different? And what I decided to do was, while yeah, there's monsters, there's gods, there's supernatural occult, the story isn't necessarily about them. It's about the characters that are having to. It's a very personal story about them being around it and having to make observations of where their lives end in relation. It's not so much about the monsters. It's just that the monsters are just another pain in the ass of the people that are trying to just live in a world that's already hard enough. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, now you're gonna do. I got to deal with this,
Yeah.
and that's what inspired me to write the story. Because when I was able-bodied, I never really thought about being disabled. I mean, who does, right? It
Mhm.
just happened one day. Like I didn't. It wasn't on my bingo card. And after I was injured, I lost my job. I lost my relationship with I was also married. She
Mm.
had left me after my accident. My friends, who I thought were friends, they left. Family that really that rallied around me left. And every support system I had was just leaving. And every time I thought it can't get worse, it did.
Yeah.
And when I was writing The Reckoning, I was like, well, as much as I don't want to profit off my own suffering and anguish over this, but that is a perspective that like a lot of people feel, where it's like, all right, bad things happen to everybody. That's fair. But when things keep like from monumentally just rolling downhill and you're like, how worse can it get? And then the second you say that, it gets worse. And it's
Yeah.
also like, well, then how do you get out of that? And it's just perseverance. And really, that's where I started going with the story. And the
Mm.
monsters and the gods and the blood and violence, one, it's because it's fun to watch. I mean, I love Evil Dead. Who doesn't?
Right.
But, it's also a thing to say, like, no matter how dark things get, the awesome thing is like people get up again and keep moving forward. And there's no better way of showing that than like having someone like myself who can't move, who can't do anything physically, and is looked upon like, well, what are you going to be able to do for me because you're paralyzed?
Yeah.
To show that, look, there's still value and there's still things that you can do. And so that's where I came up with the story and the characters. For Hector, the main character, Marisol, and her little buddy Dexter. They all will accumulate and find that, like, hey, there's strength in the individual, but like anything else, community makes a big difference, which is why I lean into the punk rock aspect of um, the creation process of the story, the crowdfunding, and the do-it-yourself ethic, because that's also been a big part of my ethics. Is like, I love the punk rock ethic of doing things yourself, but
Yeah.
you need people to help you out, and that's why I went the route of crowdfunding and putting everything together with these wonderful people that help me put the book together.
That's awesome. You've got me all up in my feels over here, man. I I love the how you said about the DIY mindset, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's individual. Like it still takes that community to come around where everybody has the mindset of DIY, but like working together towards the goal or the thing or whatever, like as a community, like that's what makes DIY work because like we need other people and it doesn't matter if you're able bodied, if you're not, if you're, dealing with a disability or any sort of anything like that others might see as a roadblock. It doesn't matter what's in your way. Like it still is having a community of people that regardless of whatever's going on say, hey, I've got your back. Like what are we doing? How do we get there? How do we have a safe concert venue? How do we have a helpful or a healthy event with bands that we can support each other? Like how do we make art together? Like how do we make our community stronger as a group by unifying around this? Like no one else is going to do it, so we're going to. Like I love it's the community, man. Like I every time community comes up on the show, I just get a little bit tickled inside because I'm like, I love hearing, because I've experienced it, of just how great not just the punk scene is and can be, but also like the indie comics community is insanely supportive. And it's just like it's one of the best things to experience is having that support and those other people that can come around and rally around you to help push whatever forward and help make more art come into the world.
For sure, definitely. That's why, to kind of like give a little more insight on the book, for the Reckoning. Uh, a lot of there are some references to like music bands in the backgrounds, and even another band gets mentioned in one of the scenes. That's actually from a real band in Arizona, the Necronauts. I mentioned them in the
I
book
was
in
going to
passing.
ask you that. Perfect.
The Necronauts are one of the greatest group of people I've ever met, and that was because prior to my accident, when I worked in the recording and live sound industry and scene, I did do work at local venues and with local punk bands because I was also in punk bands as well. I was in a local band very briefly when they started called Out for Revenge, who also did they did a promo video where their music was was the background music for the video.
Cool.
I'll have to share that with you at some point. But I also was on a punk compilation with them after I recorded one song and mixed it. Exactly, yes. From the AZPunk comp. Shout out to the
Yeah.
AZPunks out there. You guys really supported me, and I love that scene because when I was in El Paso, I was in a punk band here, and I really wasn't really embraced all that well right off the bat. Partly my fault. I was really shy and insecure with myself, so I really didn't really put myself out there. But the AZ Punk crew, when I moved to Arizona, they didn't take my wallflower attitude, all that. Well, not in a mean way, but like in a, you're here to have fun, damn it. And where they kind of just all, in their own way, really just embraced me and like, hey man, you got to come party. And I was just the grumpy old guy in the corner, like trying to be cool and mysterious. And then one of them, who became my best friend, who still supports me, his name is Jeremy. Shout out to you, Jeremy. He basically pulled me apart and said, "Hey, this quiet lone wolf thing that you're doing isn't gonna work for you, dude. I'm just gonna tell you, just come have a beer, relax. It's cool, have
Yeah.
fun. You know, you're gonna make friends. Just be cool." And little by little, they all chipped away at my insecurities and my and all that. All that stuff growing up, and they really just embraced me like I was a friend they've known since they were little, even if they just knew me for about 10 minutes. And it was the best thing. And that's where I met Micah, who runs Blackwater Market Comics.
Yep.
Shout out to him. And he's also the guy that did the graphics to put the book together. So he actually formatted everything for me. And the AZPunk scene, they really just are the ones that really got me through. And the Necronauts are the guys that support Billy, the lead singer and guitar player, is the one that really inspired me to write my own comic because he had done his own. And when I saw that, he in passing was like, "You should just do it, man. Just do it. And if you need help, just let me know. I'm here for you, brother." And then that's what got me going. And they're gonna forever be enshrined and make more cameos of every band that's ever touched my life is just getting a shout out in every issue or in the background of every comic. And I'm looking to extend that to El Paso as well now that I'm here. I haven't really delved too much into the music scene just because getting out into the public is not easy for me.
Yeah.
But when I do go out, I do try to see as many local bands and support local artists as I can because it's like you said, it's that community that makes everything so welcoming and awesome and fun. And it's safe too. And that's why, like, I know I'm rambling, but like, I don't know if you've seen Superman, the new one, James Gunn Superman.
Yeah.
And right now, when he was like being punk rock, and it's like, everyone's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, because we are like that. The punk rock community is anti-establishment, but also community and big, based on like support your local bands, your local scene, your local businesses, support each other, build each other up, and don't tolerate intolerance. That's and I wanted to make sure that that bleeds through in everything I do with Dash Comics or in anything I've ever done is just to support that ethics.
That's awesome, man. I was gonna ask you, like, having started with Superman, what did you think of the new Superman movie?
I loved it. I loved it so much. Everything about it just really rang with me. I mean, I'm a big dog person as well. Hence
Yeah.
my mascot, Star Lord the Dachshund,
Yep.
spokes
That's
dog for
awesome.
my company. So seeing Crypto be chaotic and awesome,
Yeah.
that really did it for me because that was very on brand for a dog to act the way Crypto did.
Yeah.
And but the movie Superman, like, it really resonated with me, and in a way that, like, what I appreciated the most was that Clark, and not to give spoilers to people who haven't seen it, which
Yeah.
you go should because it's a great movie,
You should.
but just the whole point of like when he said, like, well, these are the parents I know versus the ones that raised me. And the whole point was just that, like, hey, I'm my own person and I don't need to be dictated by my birthright. As in the story, his parents were like, hey, you should conquer the world and make people bend to your knee because, power, what's that saying? Might makes right, or
Mm,
power is absolute.
yeah.
Where Superman said, well, my parents taught me that, well, being a good person is the best superpower of it all, because that's ultimately what is the better end of all things, is just being a better person, because being bad is just, and evil is just self-defeating in the end.
Yeah.
And that's what really resonated, was just the relationship that the parents, Ma and Paul Kent, were just like, you're a good person because you are just, you're good. Like you like being a good person. You're inquisitive. You ask questions. You doubt. That is the most human thing you can do. And you trusted your gut, and you came to us for in your darkest time, and you're with us, and that's all that matters. Is you're just a good person because that's who you are, and you don't need to be defined by how you're expected to be or anything. And that's what really resonated with me, because after I was injured, I got really kind of, in some respects, pigeonholed into being like, well, you're disabled, so really that's your new identity, is that you're the guy in the chair. And that's what we see. You can't move, you can't walk, you can't do anything. So what do you expect to contribute or do in the world?
Mm.
Like, it's just easier to either be in the background or not exist at all, because what are you going to do for us? Like, what can you do besides take resources? And that's putting kind of like very blunt experience that I've had in
Yeah.
meeting some people post injury. Not everybody has talked to me that way, but that's generally been the vibe that I've gotten, or have been flat out told in one way or another. And seeing Superman and being told, like, hey, just because you appear a certain way doesn't mean that's what you have to be. You are much more than that. You're a good person, you're a human, and we got to just trust in each other to say we can make the right decisions to do what's right for each other and ourselves. And that's what I took around. And I love the movie. It was perfect. And Guy Gardner, the ball cut, like that was the best part. I know that everyone's giving that a hard time, but the bowl
It's
cut,
so
that he
good.
just didn't care, and
Yeah.
we're just like, I loved it. Like, Guy Gardner was like my second favorite character after Superman and Crypto as a duo, just because I just love that he was just like, yeah, whatever, it's a bowl cut, deal with it.
Yeah. He was so like unapologetic about it, of just like, why are you talking about my hair? Like, I don't, what's the problem with my hair?
Yeah,
So good. I'm so happy too that like I forget his name, the actor's name that plays Guy Gardner. Like, he's so,
Nathan
I
Fillion.
watch, yeah. So I watch Castle with my mom, and he's Castle. And like, she loves that show, and she can recite every episode word for word. So anytime I'm over at her house, doing lunch with her or whatever, it's almost always on. And so when I first, like, I avoided all of the trailers for Superman. I didn't see any of them. And so when I first saw Guy Gardner, I was like, that's Castle. I I could probably convince my mom to see this. And then the more that I watched it, the more I was like, that bowl cut though, man. Like, it just it's so comic accurate, which I love. And also, they didn't use it like a throwaway gag like Marvel has done in some instances, with the Scarlet Witch show, when they dressed up as in their like comic accurate costumes for Halloween. It's like, it's cool that you did that. But for Guy Gardner to just for Gunn to just lean in to the bowl cut and make it that accurate, and have Lois poke fun at him, like, your haircut should be against your code, was one of the best lines in the entire movie for me, because she was calling out what everybody else was thinking, and he was just like oblivious to why she would think that. It's so
Yes,
good.
yes, exactly. I laughed out loud when I heard that line, but I love that Guy Gardner just kind of looked at him like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I just love that.
Yeah.
And what I also loved, which was, a little thing from that movie was just like just the whole the fact that like Guy Gardner as a Green Lantern is that in that same scene when Lois was asking him like, "Hey, Superman's your friend. Why aren't you like going to help him or defend him?" But
Mhm.
Guy Gardner did something that I liked, where he was like, you know, Lex has a point about like, hey, he could be telling the truth or this could be wrong. It wasn't that Guy Gardner was agreeing with Lex Luthor on like, hey, Superman is a threat. But I also think that having a healthy bit of skepticism and saying, well, that is true, to point out that, okay, yes, being skeptical and being able to hold people with power into account is always a good thing, whether they're your friends or not,
Yeah.
because that's how you keep each other in check from blowing up an ego or getting out of control or losing your ways. Just having a friend be able to say, "Hey, you changed," or "Hey, I don't. You used to be really nice. What's up with you? Like, what's up with this? I don't trust this anymore," or like that. And that causes you to self-reflect a little bit on both sides. So I really just appreciated that little like character, that little character trait that he had, because in the comics he was also a cop too,
Yeah.
and he was supposed to get the ring before Hal Jordan, before Hal Jordan got the ring. So him having that like healthy skepticism that a cop would, that a detective would, of saying, well, I'm always suspicious of everybody, the same kind that Batman would have. I kind of appreciated in
Mhm.
seeing that Guy Gardner had that suspicion in him still, but
Yeah.
still kept his loyalty to his friends, and still came out to support Superman in the end. So
Yeah.
I really love that part. So yeah,
Yeah, I know everybody is like super high on Mr. Terrific right now. Which he was also outstanding. But from like Guy Gardner, like we need to be talking more about Guy Gardner, because it really just makes me excited to see what they do with the Lanterns project, to see like if they're going to tie Guy into it or how all of that's going to work. Like I have no idea. And it's kind of fun to have no idea, instead of going to any number of Marvel movies, because I grew up a Marvel. I always read Marvel. I occasionally read DC, but it was primarily like I'm an X-Men kid through and through. But a lot of the Marvel stuff, I knew the storylines, I knew the high points, I knew roughly what was going to happen. And sure, everything gets changed or tweaked or adapted or whatever. I'm one of the few that I can, after a bit, I can disassociate the two and appreciate a movie as a movie and a comic as a comic. And they don't have to be, word for word, panel for panel. That would be boring, right? Like, just because otherwise, why did you make the movie if you're not going to make it fit for the big screen as opposed to fitting in a comic book? But like seeing, I never read any of the Green Lantern stuff. I didn't know any of the Lantern Corps. Like, I've seen those covers in dollar bins or at conventions and whatever. But the first time I read anything Guy Gardner was probably like 8 months ago. I read the Justice League International, and that was my introduction to Guy Gardner, really Dr. Fate, and also Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. And so for me, like, I want to see those goofy characters and relationships translate instead of just focusing on the Trinity, because it feels like DC only ever sees the Trinity as their like characters. And I'm over here thinking, like, can we just get the more obscure characters, please? And it seems like James Gunn wants to lean into that, which has me excited for where DC is going to go. Because I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do or where it's going to go. And that's exciting for me.
definitely, yeah. For as you said, Marvel for you was where you start. For me, it was DC, and it wasn't just the Trinity, as you say, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. For
Yep.
me, it was my first interaction with DC Comics, of course, was the Tim Burton Batman, which influenced me a lot. But it was also the Swamp Thing movie that came out like
Okay.
early on.
Yeah.
That was actually my second movie I ever saw. That was a comic movie, was Swamp Thing, and then the Swamp Thing TV series that was live action. I watched not the one that came out in the um,
Not the one from
CW, but the
5
one
years
that came out way back in the 80s or like late 90s, somewhere in there. I watched those. Those I watched religiously. And I can't wait to see what he does with Swamp Thing. And I need to say, Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate, great Pierce Brosnan wasted in that Black Adam movie.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Fate, I love Doctor Strange. I have him tattooed on my arm. I have a
Okay.
big one arm, my whole arm is sleeved with Doctor Strange. But Dr. Fate, he would nerf Doctor Strange so much. I mean, Doctor Fate is just way overpowered. It's
Yeah.
just he's just leagues ahead. But yeah, like you said, DC has great characters that they just don't exploit that much or bring out. One of my third favorite character is gonna have to be Wesley Dodds, the Sandman, who is
Okay.
a really deep adventure comics cut that they brought out like recently, like maybe a year ago. In their they had like a nightmare scenario run on
Yeah.
DC that I'm really blanking out on. But they briefly brought back Wesley Dodds for like a few episodes, a few issues. And I loved his whole run. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Wesley Dodds, the Sandman, but he was the guy with the gas mask and he had a gas gun that would knock people out. He was
Yeah.
fighting Nazis and all that kind of stuff. I I love the aesthetic. I love the character, and I am always on the hunt because I never. That's the one book I never got down to collecting. Was I
Mm.
never ran into a Wesley Dodds Sandman comic. So if anybody hears this, reach out to dashcomics.com or on Instagram, wherever. Find me. Tell me you got one. Let's work
Yeah.
a deal. I know I should be selling my book, but I'm always buying. I'm looking for the Wesley Dodds stuff. So hit me up.
Well, did you see when James Gunn released the mural that was in Union Terminal, the Hall of Justice is in my backyard. Like when I work in the office, it's literally like a block away from my office. So when they were shooting all of that, I of course wasn't in office, but I still drove down to like see all they had everything closed off. There's no way to get anywhere near it. But the mural on the inside that shows the history of the metahumans has that Sandman like as on the mural. It's on the timeline.
But I really do hope they bring them back because I mean, or they use them in some respect.
Mhm.
Even if they have to upgrade the character and make someone newer who younger to like take the mantle, I'd be
Yeah.
okay with that. Just because I know Wesley Dodds is primarily a golden age character. I know he had a Vertigo series in the 90s, late 80s that I
Mhm.
collected. And I would really love to see him make an air appearance because the last time I saw him, besides last year's run, was when I reread Kingdom Come by Alex Ross and
Oh,
Mark Waid.
yeah. Okay.
You know, he was the guy that was dying that that they used as a vehicle, and
Yeah.
I just the characters are so I just love those small street level characters that like are forgotten esoteric because I see them as punk rock, like the punk rock of the characters because they're just like on their own, doing their own thing. They're not Superman. They're not wealthy like Batman. They're
Yep.
not super strong. It's just bare knuckle brawling, and that's my jam because
Yeah.
that to me that's the punk rock ethic of like comics, and like that's what really resonated with me, and that's why when I wrote my book for the Reckoning and a lot of my other stories, the big theme behind Dash Comics and is to really just highlight street level and very just underrepresented characters, but not underrepresented in a way that's pandering, but more in a way that like is universal and that like what really makes society big and great as a whole is that we can be individuals that have our own ideas about how things should go, but that the collective, as I said, the unity is what really makes things move forward. Nothing has ever been done in human history was done on the back of one person. It was
Yeah.
one person's idea, maybe, or two people's, but it took a whole host of people to make that happen. And that's how we've ever really just moved forward as a species, as people. And with punk rock and on that level, I loved it because it's so authentic and it's real and solid. As
Yeah.
long as the unit stays together, it can't be stopped, and you can't stamp out human will and the collective will to want to succeed and win. And that's what I loved about ground level characters. And all the characters in The Reckoning are all people that are just regular people, like my character Hector. Um, he is, I know it's just the first issue, you're learning about who he is, what he's about, but really at the crux, he's just a dude who got a job and is trying to just provide for him and his parents. And that's
Mm.
it. Like he's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's not super smart. He's not stupid. He's street smart, more street smart than anything. That's what really works out for being a detective on that end is like, hey, I know the way people think. So looking for suspects and whatnot, it makes it easier for him. But he doesn't have like the backing and the means to just say, I can walk away from this. I don't need to do this. It's a really a climb to just want to survive, even on a government salary that you know that just can be taken away at any time. And all the characters are just like, hey, we don't have things to fall back on. We can't fail. And when we can't fail, how do we make things work? To kind of go back to when I said like how the bottom can always just get worse. What
Yeah.
makes things get better is the fact that like human will and the desire to like keep persisting despite all the horrors that are heaped upon you. That's that's the foundation of what I wanted to write, but that it takes also the ability to say I can't do this alone, and when I fall down I need to be able to be humble and say I'm going to rely on somebody who I don't think can do this, but that I need to trust can get me can get me to help us get through this situation.
Mm.
So Hector is going to learn that he can't do everything himself. He needs to accept help, and that help is going to come from the unlikely people that are going to make him a better person in the end. And these little people are going to be able to see that, hey, I am powerful in my own way to be able to succeed in accomplishing our goals and tasks. And
Yeah.
that's what the story is mostly about. And
That's
I chose the dachshund because I don't know if you know anything about dachshunds, but those are little slinky dogs, but they are the second most aggressive breed, and
really
they are the most stubborn dogs I have ever met. And they do not give two. I don't want to swear. I don't want to like demonetize you or anything, but I mean, my dogs, any dachshund I've ever met, and the dachshund Star Lord that I have now, that dude is the toughest little dog I've ever met in my life.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know. I'm actually allergic to dogs. So we always grew up with cats, which are just the worst drag queens of just like everything all the time, super drama queen. But yeah, my wife used to have like she grew up with a dachshund and said that it was very strong-willed and stubborn. So like that was the extent of my knowledge of dachshunds. But I love that, I noticed not only is the icon for your imprints the dachshund, but then the dachshund comes up in the reckoning, in and starts talking, which is super fun. And like I was going to ask, with the ritual that they do, that the teens do, and that makes the dachshund talk and then eventually brings in the spirits, like when you were creating this story, were you the one that was creating the imagery that was used, like that they smeared on the dog's forehead, or was that the artist that came up with it? Like, how did you land on what that would look like?
No, I came up with that. I did come up with that trait.
Okay.
I did look into. Excuse me. I did look into different religions and different um, occult measures and how they perform their ceremonies, and that was something that I kind of modified off a Aztec ritual, like Aztec symbology, because I'm borrowing mostly off of Latin America mythology. So the Aztec, the Mayan. So in the story, there's going to be a lot of like Hispanic and cultural lore being invoked to separate myself from like Thor and the Nordic and the more common spiritual elements that come out in our in most movies and TV shows and all that. I'm going to explore more of the Latin American with my heritage, but
Cool.
I got the symbology off of that, and I did had to like modify my own because I didn't really like I'm an agnostic, so I really don't believe in religion. So I really didn't want to like disrespect anybody's religious beliefs or anything or off put
Yep.
anybody. So I just said I'm gonna make my own, but I'm gonna base it off what I learned from Latin American mythology and whatnot, and kind of model it off of that.
That's cool.
So that's where I came up with that with that the symbolism and the arcana that the occult symbols that I use.
Yeah. No, are those going to continue to show up as the story progresses?
Oh yes, it's gonna be a slow progression. I wanted to format the story in the traditional horror format where when you watch any horror movie, it's always little things that start and then escalates little by little.
Yeah.
Everybody's oblivious to the horrors that are showing up. And I really wanted to throw that vibe because in reality, the whole frog in the pot type of situation where it's like the heat's getting, dialed up little by little.
Yeah.
And I'm also going through the trope of the curiosity killed the cat. And that's kind of what I'm going through. And you kind of get that in the first issue a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away the story, but there is a part where, characters like, we be doing this? And it's like, yeah, why not? This is fun. And it's like, I guess it's kind of famous last words. And
Yeah.
then sure enough, but I just kind of wanted to, continue that line of thought of like, well, curiosity has also been the greatest thing for people. Because again,
Mhm.
that's how we got our innovations was because we we're curious. But
Yeah.
it's also been our biggest downfall as well because curiosity has killed the cat.
Yep.
And it's just about, roll the dice of how that turns out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, it's always a roll of the dice. It doesn't matter how much of a micromanaging planner you are. There's always going to be that element of, is this going to work? I think I figured it out that it will, but there's always that percentage of the unknown that tends to get curious people in trouble. So the story is 6 issues. This was issue 1. So do you have a rough or a goal timeline for the release of the rest of the series?
Oh yeah. 1 through 6. I already had 1 through 6 already plotted out and ready to go.
Okay.
So the storyline, the whole arc is done. Issue number 2, 3, 4, and 5 already written and ready to go. It's
Wow.
just well, when you're poor and don't have money, that's just the hindrance is just the money aspect. Because one thing that I also wanted to continue with the punk rock aesthetic and lifestyle and ethos is that I don't negotiate people's page rates. So when I was talking to people for artwork, if I could afford it, I paid it. I didn't tell people, well, I'm only going to pay you X amount. It was no, you tell me what you're worth. If I can afford it, I'll pay it. If I
Yeah.
can't, I'll simply say, hey, I can't afford it. And I'll just move on.
Yeah.
And if you want to reduce your rates, that's on you. But I don't want to exploit anybody's talents. And so right now, everything is just on a raising the money basis.
Yeah.
And but issues 2 through 6 are already done. Issue number 2 is already currently in art production with Nate. The
Oh, cool.
script is done and ready, but everything's already plotted out. The only thing that is halfway finished is issue number 6, and that's because I hired a different editor to help me
Mm.
with my story beats and to help clean up some issues I had as a new writer, to ask them, hey, how can I make dialogue sound a bit more natural?
Mm.
Because when I look back on the first issue, it's my first book, so there's obviously going to be issues with dialogue or maybe something I missed because it's my first effort.
Right.
I'm not delusional that, oh, it's perfect. But what I want to do is I want to know that I'm going to do better because I'm going to consult people who have more experience, who can push back on me and say, hey, this doesn't sound natural, or this is inconsistent, or you can improve by doing this, this, and this.
Mm.
And it's up to me to accept the advice or not. And with issue 2, I hired Wells Thompson, who was referred to me. And when he went through my scripts, he said, here are the issues, here's what you need to fix. And the end result is he's making me a better writer. So hats off to Wells Thompson, who's handling issues 2 through 6. And yeah, so number 6 is the only one that I have halfway written, just because I'm kind of also gauging reaction from people of like what they like and what they don't like about the story.
Yeah.
Because while it is my story to tell, I also don't want to be like, well, tough, I want to, I do want to leave myself a little wiggle room to be
Sure.
able to say, well, they don't like the way I'm talking about or representing this person or this. And you know
Mm.
what? They have a good point. So I want to be able to have a little bit of room to make that change for the end, to make things a little bit more communal with my artists. And if they have suggestions like, hey, I think this would be a better idea, so that I can be just open and communal with that decision making process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that all is plotted out and ready. It's just money.
It's just money, man.
Yeah,
It's always money. It's such a son of a bitch.
yeah. And again, it's not my artists. Like I don't want. They need to eat. They need to make.
Yeah.
Their. And so I don't hold anybody against what they're charging, what they're doing.
Right.
It
Right.
is just what it is in that respect. I just don't have the means to throw it all out at once as I would like to. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Like if an artist has a set rate for, per page of sequential art, I agree with you that like if you can afford it, great, hire them. Like don't try and undersell them just because it benefits you or whatever. Like I love that you were just like, hey, if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. So who like go to the next artist that I admire and see if I can afford their work and go from there. Um, because yeah, like artists are charging what they are for a reason. And having just gone through a Kickstarter myself, not that I'm an artist, but as a co-creator of the comic, and you realize how much everything adds up all all very quickly. And when we were trying to figure out what our goal was going to be, it was, oh, so we pay for like printing and like the mailers and stuff, and then it was, oh well, we also need bag and boards, and oh, we need to pay for shipping too, and if we're shipping we need to pay for labels and the little stickers that say don't fold. And suddenly we've got a long list of like 15 things just to make the books. That's not the extras of like stickers and prints or whatever. And so it just it has me thinking about the cost of everything differently now because I know what cost went into making our comic. And so, now that I back a ton of Kickstarters. And so I love seeing the breakdown of like, here's where all the funds are going. Right. And arts is always a massive chunk of it. And I get it. Like these things are high quality pieces of art that need to have that respect given to them, right? Like it's not just oh, you made a comic, that's cute. Like it's a living, breathing piece of art that you're telling a story with, and it takes a lot to make one. It's not a simple like, oh, I'm going to make a comic this weekend, and by Saturday night I have it done. It's a substantial process to make a comic, especially one that has a lot of family ties to it, a lot of yourself in it. Like all of those things just enhance the storytelling and make it even better. And so I understand and I appreciate the effort that indie creators put into their work because it's a lot.
Almost definitely. And that's also why like I had a hard time with like the price point, $10. I was like, how cheap can I make, not cheap as in like the product itself, but
Sure.
how can I make it affordable for everybody? And like not like charge $30 for a new book from a new writer who because I get it. I had some people saying, well, how come you don't charge $30 for your first issue? And I'm like, are you nuts? I'm unproven. Like nobody knows who I am. The economy's hard. And if they're gonna choose between a $30 comic from somebody that they don't know or a Spider-Man, Batman, and being able to buy 8 books from different publishers that are charging $5, $6 a piece, there's more value in Spider-Man than there is the Reckoning because what you're gonna get in that respect.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to cover costs, but I don't want to break anybody's arm either. So I chose to go as low as I can, and that was $10. And then even then, as I like to joke around people, like a punk rock ethic, again, I keep coming back to that. I am horrible, and I'm shooting myself in the foot. I am horrible at like charging for what I think I deserve personally because I am a giving person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, the less I can do is $10. Because it's not about, I've always had this thing like, it's not about me. It's not just about me. And that's something I've always held like, I don't care if I make money. I care if everybody else can survive alongside with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, $10, is it going to make back the money I spent right away? No, but that's not what I'm going after. I don't want to break anybody's bones to buy a comic book. It shouldn't be that way. And that's also why like I had a second Kickstarter that didn't fund, but one of the things that I was told why it didn't fund when I was, messaging some people that had previously that had backed it was that well there weren't any add-ons or there weren't any like prints and extra little things like that, the knickknacks to put on. And I was like, well, the story I'm writing is a bit more serious than The Reckoning. And I don't want to like commodify and monetize the issue that I'm writing about because it's about disability and it's a bit more of a serious book than The Reckoning. And I want to give disability the respect that it has because it is, a difficult life to have is to live with disability. Not just the actual physical being of it, but the economic and the psychological aspects of it. And for me to go around saying, well, people buy my $30 like bobblehead of my main character who's in a wheelchair. That doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
And that's just a me thing. But I just don't want to like say, feel sorry for me. I'm in a wheelchair. Here's a wheelchair guy. Buy it because it's a guy in a wheelchair. And I'm in a wheelchair, so you should buy it. $30, please. I just can't do that. I want to, it doesn't make sense for that kind of story. For The Reckoning, yeah, because well, it does have some, like, I am telling the story I want to tell, but with the talking dog and the more, supernatural elements that are fun
Hmm.
with the blood and the violence and everything. Yeah, prints are going to be cool for that. Like, that's appropriate, but I just can't. I don't like having to be a salesman and be like, buy my tchotchkes and buy, be kiss and buy every little thing that I can slap my name onto.
Yeah.
That's just not my vibe. And they're saying, well, that's going to be kind of an issue for you. And I'm like, yeah, I see that. I can definitely feel that, but I'm a little too stubborn that I need to work through. But I just don't want to like sell for the sake of selling
Yeah.
and get money from people just for the sake of getting money, because that's just, again, we need money to pay for things. I get that, but
Yeah.
it's not my end all be all of living.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And like honestly, that is such a like I respect the hell out of that decision of no, it's about the book. And it feels exploitive to make all the extras just because that's what people are accustomed to with a comic book campaign. And instead of doing that, like it's the story that matters. It's the character that matters. It's not the extra stuff. So I respect the hell out of it. Like I understand it didn't fund. I was one of the ones that got the email that said that it didn't fund, but like it's just one of those. Everything's a learning process. So I'm sure there were a ton of lessons that you picked up through that, and maybe you approach it differently in the future. Maybe it's not Kickstarter that makes sense for that. Maybe it's, something complete like sell digital copies only or something. I have no idea what that answer is, but like it's then because it failed, instead of, I don't think you're the type of person that's going to let that defeat you. It's going to instead like rejuvenate your energy of, okay, well, what else can I do to get the story out? Like, how do I get the story into the world? And so if anything, like it gives you a new perspective or energy to jump from to tackle the thing of like making that story real.
Oh no, yes. What I'm doing is that it's still going to be in production. In fact, the artist Kat Penrose, she's going to start working on it again next month. Because it failed on Kickstarter, but the story is too important to me. And again, to be with that punk rock, heavy metal, because heavy metal rockers, death metal, the extreme music scene, it's
Mhm.
I regard it the same way. It's we persist because we're here, and I'm gonna make dumb reminders. Is gonna come out regardless of public funding or not. I
Yeah.
am committed to doing it one way or another, even if, like with the Reckoning, I sold my comics to fund it. I still have books, lots of Golden Age, lots of Silver Age, that I could still move if I want to and if I need to. So I will do that if I have to. But I am going to continue. Like Dumb Reminders is back in production. It just took a pause this month, and it's going to be written. Like, there is nothing that's going to stop me from making that story. Just because people it didn't fund on Kickstarter doesn't mean it can't succeed still on its own. It's just going to
Yeah.
take longer than I wanted to. So it's still going to
Sure.
happen.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
that's still going. And another fun thing I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you oh no, well, for in the Reckoning, I'm sure you noticed that there were 4 ad pages in it,
Yeah.
full pages for Black Water Market Coffee and Comics, and a few other and 3 other small businesses. Those are all small businesses in Arizona. Again, repping the AZPunk, all from contacts of AZPunk and AZPunk adjacent friends. And those were all full page ads that were done on my dime. Like, I did not charge them.
Mm.
I paid for the pages. I did not pay anybody to pay for pages for ad. I am going to continue that ethic of giving 4 ad pages in each book for
That's
either individual creators, other publishers. As you saw, there was that Total Gavone publishing. That's
yeah.
through my friend Danny Mariano. He does his own publishing. Night of the Gabagool is his last book that he put out. He was also in AZ Punk Rock, a hometown hero in the Northside Kings. Um, he's in the book too, and I put his book in the ad page as well. And I'm going to continue doing that for as long as I can.
That's awesome.
No small business or small creator is ever going to get turned down for having a free page in each and any book that I put out. I gotta try to spread them out. So like each book's gonna have either a local band, a local creator, whether a writer, an artist, publisher, small business, small venue. If they want to reach out and say, "Hey, can I get an ad on your book?" They're not going to be charged as long as I just get the files and they can be adjusted to fit the printing specs.
Yeah.
No charge. Just send me the files. It's going in. All I ask is one, it supports your local community, supports the indie scene, and that it's don't be bad people. That's all I ask. Like no discrimination. If you're just
Yeah.
if you're pushing that, yeah, you're not gonna get in. But hey, all inclusive otherwise to like everybody that's just small
That's
and
awesome.
mom pop. I do that. Yeah.
That's cool. And where do people find you online?
Well, it's going to be on dashcomics.com or Instagram comics, Blue Sky comics, and Facebook. I'm trying to get on. I know I can get on Threads, but I'm going to date myself. I'm an elder millennial, and I'm turning into a old cranky old person where like I don't want to get on other social media.
Yeah.
Like I'm just bad at that. Like I'm just because
Dude, I'm right there with
I'm a
you.
pound the pavement kind of person. I like being in person and like doing things like old school punk rock, like doing my own flyers with like, cutting out letters,
Yeah.
doing the, mishmash of like, tape, glue, and cutting out stuff and printing it at Kinko's, putting it
Yeah.
like in flyers and doing that. I'm just old school that way. And I know I got to get better for the new like generation of kids that are coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a hands-on guy. Like I still believe in digital files. Like I still buy brand new comics in floppies, even like new Marvel and DC and the other indie and like other indie creators like Billy at his billy'scomics.com. I still collect the physical media because I don't trust like mega corporations to not pull away their licenses and stop
Yep.
letting me have access to those things. That's just my thing. Like I don't trust them to not do that. So I'm gonna keep buying physical media and have it for as long as I can.
That's awesome. So, we hit all of the notes that I wanted to. You're an excellent guest because it's like you knew where I was going. So you hit a lot of the stuff that I was going to ask you about, which means there's two more things that I want to do. The first is I'm going to pose and take a screenshot. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to hold up the comic as well so that we get this in here. And so this is going to live on YouTube forever. So I'm going to do that quite quickly. Once I get my keyboard shortcut. And then the second thing is the thing that I mentioned before we went live is I love doing this show because I get to talk to creators that have all sorts of life experiences and all different backgrounds and all different perspectives. And so I love every episode to just hear those authentic voices. So this is a chance for you to say anything that you want people to hear from you. It could be a sales pitch for the Reckoning. It could be that, you know, Arizona has the best punk scene in the nation. The content I'm not at all concerned with. I just want to make sure that you've got some space to share anything that you want people to hear directly from you. So the floor, my friend, is yours.
Well, Chris, I just want to say thank you first off for having me. To AZPunk, much love to all of the scene out there. Billy, Dale, and Chris with the Necronauts, Darren Roberge with Alpha Revenge, uh, Danny at NSK, Northside Kings, uh, the whole AZ Punk crew, Jeremy Stoker, you're the best. Uh, Thank you guys. You guys are like the best people I've ever met. You really helped me get through. Nate Walkington, Ray Dillon, Francesca Fantini, you guys were so awesome in giving me your time and talent for the Reckoning. And Xylavale, thank you so much for the cosplay that you sent me for the book. And again, everybody, please, if you have a small business, you're a small creator, please create, please send me your files. I will put your ad in my book. I do not need anything in return. Just say, what's up? I saw you. I want to reach out. Send me photos of your pets. I love looking at pictures of dogs. So does Star Lord. We hang out. We look at things. And again, be cool and read comics, support each other, and listen to punk rock. Descendants, love you guys. That's my favorite band, by the way. And again, thank you so much, Chris. I truly do appreciate everything, man.
Absolutely, dude. This was a blast. Like I said, anytime that I can talk comics and music, especially with someone that has been involved with creating both, especially when it's punk, like I know it's going to be a good conversation. And this absolutely was. So thank you for your time today. Hang tight after this. I got logistics for you. But for everybody else that's out there, whether you're watching live, listening, or watching after the fact that it's been published, I've got a review for The Reckoning that's going to be dropping on Monday this week. So like 24 hours from today is when it's scheduled. And so you can hear my thoughts on the book, a little bit more on the artwork. You can see a little bit of previews there. I don't want to give everything away in those reviews, so I don't, because you should just buy the comic. Buy The Reckoning. It's a super fun. I wrote down possession, mystery, crime, and magic were my 4 words that I wrote down after I read it. And it's got a talking dog. Like, what more do you want in a comic? So, Beto, thank you so much for hanging out with me. For everybody else, what's a good tagline, or what's a good podcast without a good tagline? Here's mine. Go do what's good for you, punks, and read some indie comics, because we are out of here. And then we hit the button.